you want to help me film a video? Yeah? How about some cuddles? Is that good? Hey everybody, I hope you're all doing amazing. I'm here with Sophie, and today's video is one that I have been wanting to make for a while, but I wanted to give it some time. If you guys have been following our channel, you know that Sophie and I made the decision to move from Canada to Portugal, and it's now been a few months, and I think I've had enough time to immerse myself in the culture, the country, everything else in between, and now I think it's time to give you guys some info on what you can expect when moving here to Portugal. I want to start off this video by saying that I know with 100% certainty I did not experience a culture shock. And I don't know if it's just the way I am or how I grew up in Canada, but I honestly think that Portugal is a country that is very easy to adapt to. Everybody's very easygoing and friendly, and there's nothing about the culture or country that stands out or that's really strong and difficult to adapt to. I honestly don't think that a lot of people would experience a culture shock moving here. And after speaking with a few neighbors and some of my new friends and telling them about my experience in life in Canada, I honestly think that a lot of people who were to move from Portugal to Canada would have more of a culture shock there in adapting to Canadian culture. So I am definitely curious to see what it's going to be like when I choose to go back to Canada and see what I struggle to adapt to being back in Canada. Although I did not experience a culture shock, I did experience 3 things that were really difficult to adapt to. And I want to get into that in this video. Before though I get into that, I do want to tell you there are tons and tons of small things that are completely different here than in Canada. And I'm actually going to follow up this video with a series of videos giving you guys more insight into what is different here in Portugal. And basically these things though are just things that are small, everyday things that I honestly think with time you could easily adapt to. It's nothing that stands out, nothing major, but if you want to know more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can get updates and see more of those differences between the two countries. Now let's get started on these 3 things that I really struggled with moving to Portugal. The very first thing is the slow pace of life. If you know anything about this culture, is that punctuality is not a priority. If you're making an appointment at a company, if you are making a time to hang out with your friends, people will not be meeting you at that time frame. It will usually be quite a few minutes late, so you definitely have to get used to that. That slow pace of life also is impacted in businesses and in just the way the country runs. A lot of businesses and any job that you will work will typically take off an hour or 2 hours for lunch. Don't expect to make any appointments or be able to go to certain stores between that lunch hour because they will not be open. Nobody will be there. That was definitely something I had to struggle with because I had to remember that for that 1 or 2 hour mark, I wasn't able to visit a lot of places that I needed to visit because they were all gone on lunch. So that was something totally different than Canadian culture. That also ties in with restaurants here too. In Canada, most restaurants are open all day long. Here, they are only open during meal times, which means that restaurants will only be open for the lunch hour between 12 and 3, and then open again for dinner around 7 and close around 10 or 11 p.m. If you are looking to eat in between those time frames, you either have to eat at a fast food restaurant, which is growing in popularity here, places like McDonald's and Burger King, or you can eat at a bakery and have a pastry or a sandwich, or you just have to eat at home. You will not be able to eat outside of those meal times at a restaurant because they will be closed. And as you can tell by the meal times I gave you, Portuguese people also eat really late. I think it's a European thing to eat really late. I was used to eating at home around 5:30, 6 o'clock. Here, most people don't go to eat until about 8 p.m. So people like to eat late here. And don't tell them you like to eat dinner early because they will think you are crazy. If you also get invited over for lunch or dinner at a Portuguese person's house, you will also expect to be there for hours on end. Portuguese people like to take their time with eating and hanging out at home, so definitely expect that as well. The second thing I struggled to adapt to here in Portugal is safety, and this was actually a good thing to adapt to. Portugal is much safer than Canada, unless you're in a big city like Porto or Lisbon where there's more smaller crimes like pickpocketing and other things like that. If you're in a smaller city, it definitely feels safer. It is safer, especially as a solo woman traveling alone. I definitely haven't had any issues, and I definitely feel a lot safer here, which was really nice, especially because in Canada I would typically avoid certain places and certain hours of the day to be outside. Here, I don't feel that way, especially now with the winter hours kicking in and it getting much darker earlier. I feel okay going for walks with Sophie at nighttime when I wouldn't typically feel as comfortable with that back home in Canada. Now, the very last thing I struggle to adapt with is probably something you would struggle with too if you chose to move here, and that's the language. Now, to give you guys a little bit of a background, I am Portuguese. My parents are from Portugal, so I have learned Portuguese when I was younger. I did visit the country a few times as well. However, though, even though I have a basic understanding of the language and I think I am pretty fluent and can have conversations with people, there are, of course, words that I simply don't understand. Anyone that speaks another language at home knows that the language you speak with your parents is probably going to be different than the native language spoken in the native country. When I came here, there was a lot of words that I had to learn, and it was fun having to figure out their meaning and then trying to practice using that word in future conversations so I could build up my vocabulary. Even though this was something to struggle with, to learn all this new vocabulary and learn all these new words and how to use them, the Portuguese people are so nice. So if you're not able to understand a word, they will definitely explain it to you and use other words to help you understand what they're talking about. In terms of speaking English, major cities are going to have a lot more English speakers like Lisbon, Porto, Coimbra, cities like that. I'm in a smaller city located outside of Porto, so there's not as many English speakers. So if you're looking at relocating to Portugal and you're looking to stay outside of a major city, I would definitely recommend brushing up on your Portuguese because there's not as many English speakers when you're in smaller cities. Now, it seems weird to have only 3 things that I struggle to adapt with when moving here to Portugal. And that's because, again, this culture is so easy to adapt to, at least given my type of personality and my experience as a Canadian. There are a lot of small other little things that I definitely have had to adapt to. So make sure you subscribe so you can follow along because I'm going to post a whole series of videos showing you guys all the things that make Portugal different from Canada. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions about what it's like moving here and what it's like living here, and I'll definitely do some more follow-up videos if you guys are interested. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you again next time. Bye, guys. So if you want to say bye? Should not disturb a sleeping puppy. No. I will now sit here for the next half hour until she decides to leave. See you later, guys.